Arctic ice traps, the massive exploration ship beneath endless darkness. Snowstorms whipping violently across deck, while moonlight glints across frozen waters, foreshadowing the tragedy of obsession and inevitable confrontation. Lamplight flickers across the cabin as letters reveal ambition, ruin, and a nameless horror approaching. Quill resting on parchment, wind howling, casting long, trembling shadows along the walls. Frozen and barely alive, Victor is hauled aboard the ship, gaunt face, pale, gray eyes burning with relentless determination. Survival precarious, frost clinging to his coat and dark, damp hair. Weak upon the narrow bunk, he begins recounting ambition's birth, the pursuit of forbidden knowledge, and irreversible consequences that will define his life and unravel the world around him completely. Geneva shines golden beneath evening skies, lake reflections calm, mountains towering in the distance. Youth filled with curiosity and wonder, innocence and hope, unaware of the shadows looming over his family's destiny. Mother falls ill. Grief etches itself permanently into Victor's heart, leaving empty hollows where joy and security once lived, marking the first irreversible step toward obsession and tragic ambition. At the university, sparks of electricity ignite dangerous fascination in Victor's eyes, turning intellect into obsession. His mind consumed by unnatural possibilities that defy nature, morality, and human limitations entirely. Ancient texts and radical theories devour his nights, candlelight flickering across determined gray eyes, ambition blinding morality completely, obsession overshadowing reason, leaving only pursuit of power and forbidden creation. Isolation grows as he studies life obsessively, neglecting health, friendship, and compassion. Long nights in shadowed laboratories, his mind consumed, his soul gradually hollowed by ambition's cold, ruthless grip. Among graves and frozen shadows, he gathers fragments of mortality beneath the cold moon, carefully selecting each piece. Silent footsteps echoing, determination shaping what will soon be life itself. Piece by piece, he assembles a towering form upon the table, each stitch and joint deliberate, eyes gleaming with obsession, convinced that triumph and immortality await his audacious hands. Lightning shatters darkness, channeling violent energy into lifeless flesh, sparks illuminating stitched scars, wires crackling, shadows dancing across walls. Victor frozen in awe, simultaneously thrilled and horrified at the consequence of creation. A yellow eye opens slowly. Horror replaces triumph instantly. Victor recoils in terror, realizing the weight of playing God, the consequence of ambition, and the life now staring back at him. Fear overwhelms Victor. He flees through the shadowed laboratory, knocking over instruments, shards of glass reflecting pale candlelight, leaving the creature alive, aware, and abandoned, a silent witness to his creator's panic. Morning reveals abandoned instruments and shattered hopes. Victor's work incomplete, yet dangerous. Cold light highlighting scattered papers, broken glass, and the looming presence of his creation now roaming freely outside. Alone in the snowy forest, the creature examines nature curiously, touching trees and snow, confused by emotions he cannot name, sorrow and longing written into his massive amber-tinted eyes. Villagers react with fear and hostility, shouting and waving torches. Yet the creature retreats silently, sorrowful and intelligent, misunderstood entirely. Exiled from human society before he truly understands himself, a blind elder offers fragile acceptance in a quiet cottage, firelight softening amber eyes, warmth providing fleeting comfort. Yet the shadow of rejection and isolation continues to loom heavily. Hope collapses. When others arrive, driving the creature away into the snowstorm, flurries swirling around massive shoulders, leaving only sorrow and vengeance in his heart. Unseen by those around him, flames consume the cottage as wind to wind blows, casting shadows across snow, the creature watching silently from distance, his sorrow deepening, a silent promise of revenge forming in his mind. Near Geneva, innocence wanders beneath trees, unaware of the towering figure in shadows. The first spark of tragedy setting into motion, fate cruel and unrelenting in its design. Silence follows grief, carried only by the wind and falling leaves, forest heavy with the weight of tragedy, tragedy unseen yet palpable in every frozen breath of air. In court, injustice prevails as the true witness remains silent. Eyes wide with sorrow, Victor hiding behind shadows, guilt heavy upon his soul, unspoken but impossible to ignore. High atop glaciers, creator and creation finally confront destiny. Snow whipping violently, ice stretching endlessly, wind howling like ancient warnings, their silhouettes framed dramatically against the pale frozen sky. Amid roaring winds and jagged ice, the creature demands companionship to end suffering. Voice silent, yet conveyed through eyes, posture, and gestures, the weight of loneliness. Apparent. Reluctantly, a promise forms beneath storm-darkened skies, hesitation visible in Victor's haunted gray eyes, as fear and guilt struggled with obligation to prevent further tragedy. On a distant Scottish island, isolation returns as another experiment begins. The storm outside echoing his inner turmoil, waves smashing violently against rocky shores, shadows flickering inside the candlelit room. Doubt creeps inward, whispering warnings against repeating catastrophe. Every movement hesitant, every heartbeat marking the struggle between creation, ambition, and morality. Night pressing down on Victor's tense frame. Fear conquers ambition. Destruction ends the second creation, Victor tearing cloth and bones apart. Lightning illuminating the room in cold flashes, rage and regret mingling in every shadowed corner. Through shattered windows, betrayal ignites furious resolve in the creature. Amber eyes gleaming with pain and fury. Snow swirls around his massive frame, promising vengeance without words. A vow of revenge lingers heavier than thunderclouds. Victor walking among tombstones, grief etched into his sharp features. Wind howling, snow falling silently on abandoned paths. Returning home, unease, shadow celebration, anticipation of union mingled with dread, each candle flickering like a warning, corridors echoing faint footsteps of approaching tragedy. Wedding candles flicker beautifully, masking invisible dread. Elizabeth radiant, yet fragile. Victor dissonant tense, shadows stretching unnaturally across the grand hall, hinting at doom to come. Night descends quietly along empty corridors, pale moonlight reflecting off polished floors, wind stirring curtains, anticipation and fear tightening like a noose around his heart. Moonlight reveals irreversible loss and devastation. Grief paralyzing every motion, Victor collapsed beside Elizabeth's still figure, life's fragile beauty extinguished by consequence and fate's cruel hand. Grief hollows his soul, replacing love with consuming obsession, shattered eyes burning with desire for vengeance against the being that caused such profound suffering. Another death crushes the remnants of comfort, leaving only bitter isolation and cold determination, a heart hardened by loss and relentless pursuit. Standing among graves, he swears relentless pursuit, determination etching lines into his exhausted face, snow swirling at his feet as wind screams in harmony. Across forests and mountains, vengeance becomes his only purpose. Footsteps leaving frozen impressions, eyes scanning horizons, following the distant amber glow of the creature's gaze. Ruined villages mark the path of his adversary. Empty homes, broken gates, flickering lights reflecting shadows of fear and sorrow. Every scene reinforcing isolation and obsession. Frozen rivers crack beneath determined footsteps, every breath visible, every heartbeat marking relentless obsession. Ice glinting like shattered glass beneath pale northern sunlight. Northern seas beckon beneath gray skies. Jagged ice cliffs stretching endlessly, waves roaring with nature's raw, indifferent power. Across drifting ice, the chase narrows fatally, each step exhausting yet relentless. Tension mounting with the cold Arctic wind. Blizzards erase distance, snow whirling violently, yet hatred sustains in determination carved into every frozen feature of Victor's exhausted face. Collapsed and dying, he is hauled aboard Salvation, lantern light reflecting off frost-covered hair and coat, warmth weakly rekindling, failing strength. With fading power, he confesses ambition's fatal cost, eyes pleading silently, hands trembling over parchment and letters that will carry his story. Breath ceases quietly. Vengeance remains unfulfilled. Arctic silence enveloping all, leaving the ship adrift amidst frozen emptiness and lingering northern lights. Silence on his brilliance, undone by obsession. As crew mourns quietly, lantern light flickering across solemn faces, snow crunching softly beneath heavy boots. Under auroras, the creature returns to witness mortality. Amber eyes, reflecting pale light, regret heavy, yet survival persistent, form still, tall and sorrowful. Towering beside the body, regret replaces fury. Massive hands clenched, posture stooped. Realization dawning fully that vengeance brings no solace, only endless exile. Creature recognizes himself as consequence, not destiny. Shadows stretching across snow, aurora glowing faintly above, carrying the weight of all actions undertaken. Creator and creation lie divided by irreversible choices. Frozen landscapes stretching endlessly, wind moaning through jagged cliffs, solitude defining their fate entirely. Turning away, he rejects further destruction, every step measured. Snow crunching under massive feet. Silence, conveying sorrow too deep for words. Alone on drifting ice, embraces eternal, exile, pale northern sky above, endless white beneath. Footsteps fading slowly into frozen horizon. A distant flame flickers against endless snow, symbol of life, hope, or destruction. Barely visible through swirling winds and darkness. Northern lights shimmer across frozen landscape, colors reflecting an icy beauty tinged with melancholy, stretching infinitely above silent Arctic expanse. Fire dims slowly, swallowed by snow and wind. Shadows retreating, emptiness expanding across white expanse, silence absolute. Dawn arrives over abandoned ice, golden light glinting off frost. The Arctic peaceful yet hauntingly empty, carrying echoes of ambition and loss. Ship sails onward, carrying cautionary memory of brilliance and obsession. Snow-white horizon stretching infinitely, northern lights fading behind distant peaks. Across ice and sky, ambition's echo fades into eternal darkness, silence, and snow. The Arctic swallowing all evidence of creation, vengeance, and tragedy completely.